Hello, Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator Podcast. I'm your host, Dana, and today we are talking about the Summer House finale, the In the City premiere, and Watch What Happens Live. Let's get into it. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I hope everyone's had a great week so far since we last chatted on Monday. And my apologies that there was no new episode yesterday. Typically, as I have mentioned, Tuesdays are my recap with Yana Firestone of The Real Housewives of Rhode Island. However, Yana was feeling under the weather, and we decided since that episode of The Real Housewives of Rhode Island that just aired the other day, aside from like the last scene, we felt like it was more of like a filler episode. So we're going to double up and do two episodes for you guys next week. And that's what we'll be doing. I also have some very exciting news that I can't share yet, but I'm going to have a very big interview coming up this week that I will be airing for you guys on Friday. I promise it's really exciting. It's someone you definitely want to hear from. So don't worry, you will still be getting lots of episodes this week as we just had Monday, our reality roundup. So I hope you guys caught that. Today, like I said, we're doing the Summer House finale, In the City premiere, and Watch What Happens Live. And then on Friday, I will have a special guest episode. So stay tuned for that. But today's episode, I am here on my lunch break to break it all down for you. The next few weeks are going to be kind of crazy because we have two episodes airing every Tuesday night for the next 4 weeks. We have Summer House, the finale just aired, and then we have a three-part reunion coinciding with In the City premiering right after that for the next few weeks. So I will be covering both because I really feel like it's imperative, whether or not we're into In the City, to continue the trajectory of this storyline. I am very into the West Amanda, Kyle, Sierra of it all, and I want to continue to keep talking about it until the very, very end. And I feel like how can we do that without talking about In the City as well, right? So last night's finale was pretty epic. It sort of felt like a series finale in a way, as opposed to a season finale, because at the time, Kyle and Amanda were still together, technically, and they thought that they were going off to In the City. So it really felt like we were going to be losing some of our core characters. This was also, 10 years in the making, right? So it really was a very special season, a very special episode. And I think it really just showed how we have really come to love and respect these characters over time to the point where you watch an episode like this finale and you just bawl your eyes out because it was really emotional to watch. It really reminded you of the last 10 years that we've been watching these people. And as parasocial as that seems, 10 years is a long ass time. And we feel like we've gotten to know these people to an extent. So when you watch almost what's like the end of an era in a way, it can be quite emotional. So I felt like I watched the finale 3 or 4 times at this point because I really wanted to immerse myself in it and make sure that I had a lot of thoughts. That being said, I do feel like it was very overproduced. It really felt like a lot of the scenes that we saw in the finale were pushed upon by producers. And I don't know, a lot of it just felt kind of fake to me. I'm not saying it was a bad episode. I really still enjoyed the episode, but I don't know, even like the Lindsay and Carl of it all, a lot of it just felt really like forced and fake and like there for the cameras. But let's get into the episode. We'll talk the Summer House finale, then we'll talk the In the City premiere, and then we'll talk Lindsay and Kyle on Watch What Happens Live. But yeah, let's start with the après ski party. We are still there. This is Sierra's party, and she absolutely killed it. Everybody is having an amazing time. And we have a sit down between Kyle and Sierra, and they talk about the conversation that they had had previously on the beach, where Sierra had suggested that Kyle and Amanda separate. And Kyle admits that he was really caught off guard by that conversation, right? And it really hurt him. When he keeps bringing up how much this hurt him, I wonder if he feels any animosity towards Sierra when he says this. Like, it doesn't come off that way. It doesn't come off like he's angry with her, but maybe that's why he was taking out his anger on everybody else. Maybe that's why he was telling Amanda, fuck you, and why he was trying to fight Carl, because he was really angry with Sierra for trying to bring up this separation conversation in the first place. And she reiterates that, like, everyone loves them and nobody wants to see them divorce or be unhappy. But at the end of the day, she wants them to be happy. But she explains, like, it's really difficult for her to have a fulsome friendship with him if he's going to go off on her friend like that and then act like everything's all good, right? Because remember, like, when they had that big fight last week when he tried to fight Carl, they all went out afterwards and Kyle acted like it was completely normal that they were all going out together, right? So that's just what's kind of, messing with Sierra. And Kyle is really receptive to that. And that's what I really do love about this friend group, where while technically Sierra may have been overstepping by getting involved in their relationship, it doesn't feel like anyone feels that that is the case, because this is such a close-knit friend group and because everybody airs their dirty laundry to each other. Kyle and Amanda's entire relationship trajectory has been, on the forefront for everybody to see. So it would be weird for people not to weigh in, I guess, if you think about it. So I'm glad that they just sort of worked out that issue. But it's true that Kyle just does not know how to regulate his emotions. And that's something that he really has to work on. And like, listen, there are moments where I look at the way that he's been acting and acting out, and I feel like maybe I would react in that same way as well. I feel like that's really possible. But at the same time, that's not okay, right? And it's something that he has to really look inward on. But at the same time, I feel, when I've started to look back at this entire season and the way that Amanda has been treating him, despite the way that he has been treating her as well, okay? Like, he was an awful husband. The silent treatment and the ignoring, I mean, that is going to set someone off. And I feel like he doesn't know how to handle that. I feel like every time he tries to talk to Amanda about their issues, she just turns it right back around on him and brings up the cheating or brings up things that he does. And he's not really able to voice his concerns and his opinions about what's wrong in the relationship. And so he just sort of blows up. Again, not justifiable. And he definitely should work on that in therapy. But I can sort of, in a way, understand where that comes from. Okay, then we have this sit down between Carl and Lindsay, where Lindsay actually asks him to have a sit down and talk. And she explains basically that after they broke up, she was really hurt by a lot of things that happened sort of after the fact. So, for example, she didn't hear from his mom, Sharon, for like a month after the breakup. And then she comes up to Lindsay out of the blue at Soft Bar and is sort of like bombarding her and asking her questions about Gemma. And it sort of rattled her. And then, like, 2 months after the fact, she was out partying at their event, right? Because remember, the wedding couldn't be canceled because it was too late. So some people just went anyways, including Sheena and Carl's mom, right? So they were partying it up together. Sheena gets like a little tagline there in the episode. And, Sheena's loving that. She loves to stay in the mix. So because Sharon went ahead and like partied her ass off at their non-existent wedding, she was really hurt by that and put off by that, especially when Sharon approached her at Soft Bar. Okay, I mean, like, putting that all in perspective, I guess maybe I understand a bit more, because initially I was like, Lindsay, like, I think that the message that Sharon sent her a month after the fact was very nice and fine and kind. I feel like her calling Lindsay mean at Soft Bar was like epic, but also maybe not so nice. But yeah, I forgot that she went to the wedding and that she partied it up. And basically, it was sort of like stomping on the grave of Lindsay and Carl's wedding and their future and stuff together. So, given that, I can understand why she would be a little bit upset with Sharon. That being said, I wonder if she's upset with Sheena. I think that she was for a bit at the time, but I'm not sure if she is anymore, but I'm sort of curious. But yeah, I feel like I can understand a little bit more where Lindsay's coming from. Carl really tries to be understanding in this regard. He says he understands, he says that like he apologizes and acknowledges how much she's done for him and guided him and made him a better person. And he really acknowledges the way that she helped to calm down the situation the previous week with Kyle. And it really showed how much like he does listen to her and value her. And even as amped as he got, as soon as he sort of looked at her, he felt that calmness and he felt that he needed to listen to what was going on, which just shows how soft Lindsay actually can be. Because if he's going to be so heated and be so elevated, and he's looking towards someone to calm down, to be in a softer place, he looked to Lindsay, right? And I feel like that just really speaks volumes. Um, but what Lindsay expresses being truly the most upset about is that she felt like their relationship went beyond the show. She was really mostly hurt that he brought this whole thing up on camera, that he broke up with her on camera. She really felt like he should have pulled her aside and said, off camera, and said, like, hey, I feel like, we should postpone our wedding or not have the wedding or whatever. And she felt like their friendship transcended this television show. Now, we don't get an exact apology from Carl for that specifically, but he does apologize like completely overall, and it does seem like Lindsay accepts his apology. So I think that's amazing. And, a lot of us were saying when Lindsay had been saying that Carl had never sort of approached her to finalize things, we kind of wondered why that was even really necessary. But now I guess I really understand, because it seems like Lindsay just really needed to hear from him that he was sorry for doing this entire thing on camera. I feel like that's that part that's really made it difficult for her to move on with him in any regard. And I feel like maybe now that they've had this conversation, in the previous years since they've broken up, we've seen her say, I'll never be friends with him again. I'll never talk to him again. But things have started to change, right? We see them hanging out at upfronts and like at other press events. She's calling him Uncle Carl in photos and stuff, right? So I feel like, maybe there is a path forward now that she's gotten that apology that she has been so wanting for such a really long time, right? And like, seeing them come back together as friends or otherwise, I think is something that a lot of people truly want. Maybe not the otherwise. We definitely don't want them back together. They're very obviously like not meant to be together, but like as friends, they had such an amazing, beautiful friendship. And that is something we would love to see them come back together on. So even though this conversation, quite frankly, to me felt a little bit produced and forced, and even when Carl was talking about like feeling emotional about where things are with Lindsay, even when he was sort of wiping his eyes, it sort of felt fake. Like, I don't know, it just didn't feel like true emotion. But that being said, I'm glad they had to have this conversation, or they got to have this conversation, because it seemed like it was something that Lindsay truly, truly needed. So throughout the party, Kyle is trying to find Amanda and have a conversation with her, but she keeps running away from him and avoiding him, and it's absolutely weird. She tells the camera that she doesn't want another bullshit apology from him, like always. And fair enough, because, like, by the last episode, when he was apologizing for God knows what, it sort of felt like so moot at this point. Like, their relationship is so beyond these trivial apologies when their issues transcend that in so many different ways that I cannot even count. So, but it's awkward, right? I mean, like, this is a married couple, and she is literally trying to run away from him at all costs. Now, Mia, Sierra, and Amanda end up sitting down to talk about Amanda and her future. And Sierra and Mia are basically telling her, like, you need to take charge of your life. You need to decide if you want to be with him anymore. You need to tell Kyle that you are leaving him if things don't change. You can't just sort of just sit there and expect life to keep happening to you and sort of keep complaining about it. And again, this scene also felt a little bit produced and forced. Like, I'm sure producers said, like, girls, you need to have a sit down and talk about Kyle and Amanda's relationship. But like, Sierra and Mia were feeling a little bit like, I don't know. It felt a little produced. It felt like, come on, girl, get your shit together. We gotta move on. We gotta do this thing. And it just felt a little like, okay, I don't know. I just didn't, it was fine, but it just sort of felt like a little fake, like a little bit scripted almost in a way. Amanda acknowledges that Mia and Sierra say exactly what she's thinking. And that's the thing about Amanda. She doesn't really like have the balls to always say the things that she's thinking. And that's why it's so great that she has Mia and Sierra there for her. And that's why, again, I'm not mad at Sierra for when she gets super involved in their relationship, because if Amanda's not doing it, she's sort of relying on Sierra to do it for her. And that's why, if it's something that doesn't piss off Amanda, then I don't really feel like we can be mad that Sierra is getting so involved. Now, I think something that Amanda says in this scene is still really important, and I think it sort of explains maybe where she is today. And she has said this before. She still has the mentality that she feels like she won't be able to do better. Like I said, she has said this before in a previous episode. And I wonder if that's why she ended up with someone who's basically a carbon copy baby version of the man that she's already with, right? Because it just feels very weird that she's not happy with Kyle. She's not happy with the way that he lives. But now she's with somebody who's almost exactly the same. Now, obviously, it's just so obvious that they built an emotional connection over the summer and over those several months after the fact, even if you don't believe that they were hooking up previous to Kyle and Amanda actually splitting. But you can see like how close they became to each other. And I think that her having that person in her corner was just, it made her feel seen, right? It made her feel wanted. It made her feel a kind of way that she wasn't feeling anymore from her husband. And even though West is no like prize pig, because she doesn't feel like she deserves any better, she just is with another carbon copy of her husband, right? And it's not like she's ended up with this amazing guy instead. It's not like she and Kyle split up and now she's with this, I don't know, investment banker who wants kids and a house in New Jersey and all of these things. She's with just a baby version of the guy she was with before. And I think a lot of that has to do with her just having that really, really low self-esteem and not realizing that she deserves better. Now, it's easier said than done to say that she deserves better since we all hate her right now. But I'm just saying that, like, everyone deserves better. Everyone deserves to be in a relationship that makes them happy and makes them feel like they can that they don't have to be in that relationship, that they can leave it and that they can be better beyond it if it isn't the thing that is fulfilling to them. But I think that really speaks volumes to why Amanda ended up with West, of all people. So then we have this scene where Wes is telling Ben to tell Sabrina not to try to push Sierra and him together to try to date out loud because that is not where they are. Because that's basically what Sabrina is doing, right? She is so excited about the idea of West and Sierra, so she keeps saying it. She keeps trying to get them to go on double dates and keeps implying that they should date and all of these kinds of things. And it's freaking West out because he does not want to be there with Sierra. He is not in that place. He said basically like his relationship with Sierra is so difficult because he has this natural chemistry with her. Their natural rapport is basically to be flirty. That's their baseline. And he said that like the night before at the party, he basically wanted to jump her bones, but he knows that he can't do that because he knows like how complicated that'll get. And he said that the last thing that he's trying to portray, and this is basically him talking to the camera, the last thing that he is trying to portray is that he is her boyfriend. Okay, we get it, West. Okay. And so he basically says, like, yeah, I made excuses for the past 2 years of why I didn't want to be with her, but point blank, I don't want to be a boyfriend. I don't want to be her boyfriend. That is what it is. And he said that the last thing that he wants is for her to be heartbroken. But then later on that night, and we saw this scene in the preview, we saw this coming up, and we knew that this was going to happen. We see Ben and Sabrina sitting outside cuddling, and then we see West and Sierra kiss again, and then continue to sort of cuddle the night away. Now, later in the night, they're like in West's room, and Jesse is watching this entire thing where they're still sort of kissing and cuddling. He's trying to like inch her towards his bed. She doesn't go for it. And Jesse's mouth is just like agape, like even in the dark, it's just like jaw drop, like, sort of thing, because he's just like, I cannot believe that this is really happening. Now, in the morning, Sierra tells Mia that they did kiss, but she says that there has to be some sort of conversation because she doesn't want to end up in the same boat. And then we go over to Jesse and Wes, and Jesse asks Wes if he's going to hit up Sierra in the fall, like if they're going to continue to have any kind of relationship. And that's when Wes says that he's really confused about that. Dude, you knew that this was going to happen. You should have treaded so much more carefully. You should not have kissed her out of the blue, especially when you just said to Ben, like, hey, don't try to make it seem like we're in a relationshipy place. He knows that Sierra is not capable of having like a flirty friendship where they're just like fuck buddies or a situationship. He knows that she wants to be in a relationship, so he should not touch her whatsoever. He should not have kissed her. And then to say like, oh, well, I don't know what the fall is going to bring. Dude, we are now in the exact same place that we were last year. Like, what are you thinking? This is so incredibly stupid. And even Jesse is aware of that. Jesse's like, dude, do not do it unless you were all in. And Mia warns Sierra of the same. She's like, it was so bad last time. I was picking you up off the floor when you guys broke up. So both of them seem fully aware of the ramifications of what's going to happen if this doesn't, sorry, not if, when this doesn't work out. And yet they both kind of go for it anyways, but both for different reasons. I feel like Sierra because she's in love with him, and West because he's attracted to her. And those two things don't match. And those are the two things that have never matched. And that's what is just making this so complicated and why we are where we are. But, to all of those who said, like, oh, well, they only dated for a couple of months a few years ago. Well, this was September the 1st, okay? So this was September to October, November, December, January, February. Just like not that many months until Amanda and Wes confirmed that they were together. So, and then we also did hear, and I guess we're going to find out from the reunion if Weston and Sierra did hook up like this year, like in 2026, which is what we did hear. We heard that it happened like a few weeks prior to the announcement between Amanda and Wes coming out. So I guess we'll have to see. But I think it really just shows like how close in time these things really were and just shows how strong Sierra's feelings probably were still at this point in time. So in the morning, everybody's getting ready to leave the house. It's like the last day. Everybody's like crying. And like I said, it's really emotional because it is the end of the era, right? It's the end of the show as we know it, or it's what we thought would be the end of the show as we know it, because at the time that this was filming, we felt like Amanda and Kyle would not be coming back because they're going on In the City. And so it really is a big change. And so everyone's super emotional. West hugs and inappropriately kisses Amanda for like the bajillionth time and whispers something in her ear that I'm not sure. And she starts just sort of like pulling at her face because she is so freaked out because she knows that she has to have a conversation with Kyle. And again, this is such a producer thing because IRL, do they really need to have a conversation right now? Probably not. But like the fact that Kyle kept like looking for her the entire night and tried to have a conversation with her, again, I think that that's something producers were pushing. And I think that the same thing for the morning. I felt like it's part of the show where they need to sit down and have a conversation, especially so that we can properly transition into In the City. So, it's something that she absolutely doesn't want to have a conversation about. You could tell she's like really freaked out about it. And I think that her and West have probably already had a conversation about what she's going to say because you see her in the background sort of talking to West and looking really freaked out. But it looks like it's coming from a place where they both know what they're talking about. So he must be fully aware of what she plans to say to Kyle. Now, Sierra and Amanda grab hands, and Amanda says, "It was nice working with you." Now she's joking, but like, this is just such foreshadowing because like that is what ended up happening here, where Amanda treated Sierra like a business associate. When you go for a friend's ex, I mean, you don't go for a friend's ex. You may go for a colleague's ex, but you don't go for a friend's ex. And that just shows, that that's what was sort of happening here, right? That like, at the end of the day, Amanda was treating Sierra like a colleague and not like a friend. And then they end up hugging and crying. And it really seemed like this was, like I said, the end of an era, but even for them. Now, in that moment, there would be no reason for them to get so emotional with each other. But I bet you $1,000,000 this is probably the last time that they hugged and cried with each other like this, because think of all the things that have happened since. So it was really emotional to watch, just given what we know now. Given that this is a friendship that'll never, ever, ever come back. We see these two women really be there for each other and grab each other and hug each other and talk about how special they are. And, it was really emotional to watch because we know that that friendship is over as we know it. So Kyle starts to pack up and he's crying as he does so because he really feels like this is the end. And we have a scene at the end with Amanda and Kyle finally sitting on the porch to talk. Kyle talks about how he felt sick to his stomach about the separation conversation that he had with Sierra. And Amanda sort of clarifies that she wasn't like fully going for it. She was sort of like, yeah, I guess I'd be open to it. Kyle wouldn't. But, I think things are sort of fine right now. But then he had that huge blow up on Saturday where he went after Carl and he said, fuck you. And so because of all of that, now she does want to move forward and she wants to sleep in a hotel for a couple of nights. She says that she feels like she needs space and she needs to be alone. And he is not happy. He says he feels like he's going to throw up, which is a feeling I completely understand. When your whole world is being rocked against you like that, I would feel completely nauseous as well. She says that she feels like this has to be done because they can't keep doing this anymore. Okay, and then we transition right into In the City, and the show basically picks up right exactly where Summer House leaves off. We're still at the house, we're still with Kyle and Amanda, and Kyle is crying to the camera and basically talking about, this house has been a big part of his life for the past 10 years, and he never really thought it was going to look like this 10 years ago. He said that he might lose Amanda, which is everything that's important to him. And then we see them both drive home separately. And we know that this is something that normally typically doesn't happen in their relationship, even though Kyle and Amanda drove up separately for the beginning of the summer and how Amanda drove up with Sierra. Kyle points out that, it's a really big deal for them to be going home separately. Now, Kyle goes in one car, Amanda goes in another. And basically, that's how we transition from Summer House to In the City, because they're both going back to the city separately. Now, immediately the show has like a different feel and vibe to it. Like even the cinematography is different. Even when we're watching them drive in the cars, like I can't really describe it exactly, but it feels more mature, which I feel like is the intent of the show. Now, Amanda tells the camera that maybe if she takes some time from Kyle, he'll realize how serious she is about this, but she doesn't know if they can fix it. Now, I know we all hate Amanda, but like I said earlier, I still feel really committed to watching the end of their relationship because we've been watching it for the past 10 years. So, and we also know that Kyle, like I said, was a really shitty husband. So I'm still very intrigued in the ways in which Amanda's thought process is sort of going on at this point in time. Now, as we said, this is her just driving home from the Hamptons. They've started therapy at this point, and given everything that's happened, it's interesting to hear her say that she's even open to them trying to figure it out, but she's not really sure if it's even possible and that they're trying to take this step. But at the same time, like having watched back the summer, it just seemed like she's been checked out for such an incredibly long time that I'm surprised that she's even interested in trying to separate, trying to move out, continuing therapy, because it just doesn't seem like she wants to. So then we transition to 4 months later, and it's January 2026, and we see that Kyle and Amanda have announced their split. So it means that it didn't work out when they tried to live separately. And then they show us that in February 2026, Amanda was on Watch What Happens Live saying that she thinks that out of her and Kyle, she would be the first to date. And then they show Kyle on Watch What Happens Live in March saying that he doesn't think that there's any truth to the Amanda and Wes rumors. Then they show Wes on Watch What Happens Live saying that Amanda is just a friend. And then they show us the joint statement from Amanda and Wes that they are together. So then we get this scene, which was on April 9th, 2026. So this is 9 days after the joint statement between West and Amanda, because that joint statement was March 31st. So we get this scene on April 9th, 2026, where Amanda goes over to Kyle's to talk. And like I said, this is obviously post the West and Amanda announcement and post Kyle watching the entire season back, because now that he's had a chance to watch back, he has had the opportunity to sort of see how Amanda has felt about him this whole time. So Kyle explains to Amanda that he wants to be there for her, but like I said, he also wants to take the opportunity to clear things up, because looking back at the summer, it really appeared like Amanda was so completely done with him and so checked out. Now, Amanda said that she gave the relationship everything that she had, and the idea of existing without him is what made it so hard for her to call it quits. Then she says that's why it got so messy, because she knew once it was over, they would be out of each other's lives, and she couldn't handle that. What does that mean? So things got so messy, i.e., with West. So you decided to start dating someone in the friend group because you knew that the messier the better, because if it wasn't messy, then you wouldn't have Kyle in your life anymore? Like, I'm really confused. She's saying, like, she knew that once Kyle was no longer in her life, this is something that she couldn't handle, which is why it got so messy, which is why she allowed it to get so messy. I still don't really understand that. Normally I take more time to kind of digest the episodes before I record. I really wanted to get this out to you guys as soon as possible, but I still feel like I'm digesting that part because I'm not quite sure what she's saying. It got so messy, unless she's saying it got so messy because Or she means more in terms of like how long she let this go on for or how shitty she treated him throughout the summer. Maybe she means like that's what she meant by messy because the messier it got, the easier. I don't really know. I don't really know. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that. Send me or write in the YouTube comments because I love when you guys do that. I love having engagement with you guys there and chatting with you guys about the episodes and trying to figure it out. I just feel like I'm trying to figure out why she let the summer go on the way that she did, right? I feel like that is really confusing. And Kyle is like, I can pinpoint these instances during the summer and the fall where you were fully out. And Amanda says that she was to an extent, but she was tired and she had nothing left in her to fight, but she was also trying to give it everything that she had. Now, I really didn't see her trying to give anything that she had. I mean, from literally the first episode of Summer House of season 10, she was fully checked out, like fully checked out to the point where it was really uncomfortable to watch. Maybe that's something she hasn't had the introspection to be able to realize yet, but no, honey, you were not trying at all that summer, which is fine. Nobody is saying that you have to, but was really clear to me and to everyone that she was fully, fully, fully checked out and was not trying at all. Now, Kyle asks her, like, you have to admit that through the fall, there was at least an emotional affair with West. And Amanda gets really upset and she says no, that she was fully committed to Kyle. She can't believe that he would even entertain that when she has been cheated on by him. And he's like, it was a long time ago. It was one time. And Amanda's like, you made out with someone while we were married. And I was like, wait, what? 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 And then she says there's a video. And all Kyle says is, okay. What do you mean? That's almost like him admitting it. And now I'm just so curious because something that Amanda said in that Marie Claire article that she did a while back, as soon as she and Kyle separated, she was like, oh, I people have come to me in the DMs for years and years and years, but no one has ever sent me like a picture or a video to show the actual proof. So if it's always like a friend of a friend, and where are the girls? Where are the girls who are actually reaching out to me with the actual evidence? So there is evidence. So he did actually cheat. And the way that he just went off being like, okay, as if like, that's just fine. That's just fine and dandy. Like, wild, wild. That's like him admitting it. And I always knew that he had, right? The rumors have been rampant for years amongst like different groups in New York. Like, and there wouldn't be this much smoke if there wasn't fire. But like, him saying okay is basically like admitting it. I just think it's wild. Then Kyle tells her that he thinks that she's been reckless, but he worries about her mental health, which is something that we heard him saying throughout all of this. And something else that I want to mention is that the In the City premiere party happened on Monday night, I believe, and Kyle ended up taking pictures with Amanda, and the internet lost their minds over it. And then he came online to say, like, guys, like, calm down. I'm just taking a picture with her. She didn't even want to attend this. I had to convince her to attend something that she obviously very much participated in. So, like, just calm down. And, he's not wrong, right? Like, this is still his current wife, for example, and they're just taking press photos for like a show that they did together. So I don't think it's like that big a deal. Um, but Kyle expresses that he's upset that someone else gets the version of her that he fell in love with. And I thought that this was such an interesting concept, right? Like with my ex, I feel like there were so many things that he did wrong that I communicated to him. And then when he was with the next person, I felt like he then got to be the version of him that I always wanted him to be, or the version of him that I knew him as initially, right? It's the same with Kyle and Amanda, where like initially they were in love. Initially, he thought she was so much fun, and they had this really, you know, cool relationship at some point, right? And so it's something that I had mentioned a couple episodes back where I was like, the reason that they're still together must be based on the fact that both of them are trying to remember how things used to be and are hoping that things go back to the way that they used to be. And instead, that fun, flirty, silly version of her before she got married and like bogged down in like this horrifying marriage, Wes gets that version. He gets the fun, silly, carefree version of her that he fell in love with, which is the version of her that he was sort of hoping he was trying to get back for this entire 10-year relationship, right? And that's what's really sad. So then we get this rewind back to September 2025, which is when the show actually starts. We finally get to see baby Gemma. I have heard about this on a couple of podcasts where Lindsay explains that she basically had to go back and forth with her baby daddy with lawyers in order to be able to get Gemma on the show. And it makes sense because Gemma is a big part of her life. Gemma is her life. And so for her not to be able to show Gemma on camera, which would be sort of detrimental to her being able to tell her story. So I'm glad that she was able to get to do this. It's kind of funny because I feel like the agreement is that she's not allowed to show Gemma on social media, but now can show her on TV. But now we can all take screen grabs from TV of Gemma and put them on social media. So I feel like the baby daddy just lost and maybe just didn't realize it, but that's okay. So Lindsay says that Gemma is just like her and she's like a clone. They both give each other death stares and they give other people death stares and it's really funny. Lindsay's worried that she's never going to have sex again because it's been 9 months. She said that Turner broke up with her before she got the all clear from her doctor to have sex. So, you know that after you have a baby, you usually get the all clear after about 6 weeks. But that was about the point that he broke up with her. So she says that she has a nanny that she relies on as her support system named Liz. She also has her best friend Yvonne and Georgina, who are both also cast members on the show. So Lindsay and Yvonne have been best friends for 13 years. Georgina is one of Lindsay's mom friends, and she was the first person that Lindsay called when she got pregnant. Now, apparently, Georgina is a little bit crazy herself, she said, because when she was 32 weeks pregnant with a toddler, her ex left her, and she said that she went a little crazy. Now, I don't know what that means exactly. I kind of want a little bit of the deets and all of the drama. I wonder if she kind of like fucked with her ex in some way. I wonder, yeah, what happened there, right? Georgina seems like a cute, fun person. She's a dermatologist, and I think she's also Lindsay's dermatologist. And we don't get to learn much about her except that she keeps a lot of like going out clothes at work, which probably means she spends a lot of time at the office. But the fact that Lindsay calls her sort of like her crazy friend, I need to learn more. I need to know more. Then we get the scene of Amanda and Lindsay going grocery shopping together. Amanda tells Lindsay that she ended up staying in a hotel for a couple of nights, which is what we know happened at the end of Summer House. And Amanda says that the therapist said that she and Kyle hate each other, that the therapist actually said that. I am so curious to be a fly on the wall in their therapy sessions. And I'm really sad that they're actually not allowing us to be a part of that because I'm so curious what the therapist is even thinking at this point, if she's thinking that there's any resolve. Because if they're at the point where they hate each other and the therapist is saying it, I'm wondering if she's able to give them any sort of guidance towards, yeah, rectifying this marriage. Then after therapy, they ended up talking in the park, and it was a very contentious conversation. Amanda tells Kyle that she feels like there's no hope that he's going to change. He says that he can't keep going the way that things are going and tells her that she should get her own place. So it just shows that things are going down the shitter for these two, obviously. Then we move on to Andrea and Lexi. Now, we obviously know Andrea from Summer House and Winter House. Lexi was the love of his life. He was initially interested in Paige, but then he realized that Lexi was his one true love. They ended up getting married last year in Italy. And they're just going to be like our golden couple. There's nothing wrong with them. They're perfect. They're just like so in love. And, you know, they believe that their love is straight out of a fairy tale. They could spend every second of the day together and never get sick of each other, yada, yada, yada. Super happy for them. Then we have Danielle and Owen. So they apparently met 9 years ago and went their separate ways, and then he slid back into her DMs and they rekindled. So I'm kind of curious about this when they said that they met 9 years ago. I don't know if that means that they dated, that they hooked up, that they were friends, but I think that sort of gives us a little bit more context to the fact that they are moving very fast because they have now been together for 6 months, living together for one. But Danielle is 100% on the Lindsay fast track bandwagon. She's like, I'm turning 37, want to have a baby by the time I'm 38. And it's just very like Lindsay's timeline, like marriage, babies, TikTok, motherfucker, right? Like it really feels like that's what they're doing. Now, apparently, Lindsay and Danielle have not talked in 4 months, and she doesn't really know about Owen. And Danielle doesn't really know why. She knows that she met Gemma and that everything seemed really good when Lindsay initially had her. And then things sort of just went down the shitter, and Lindsay's not really talking to her, which we'll get more information on later. But Lindsay has explained that she feels that a lot of the things that Danielle has done to her in the past, she just sort of can't forgive her for. Then we get this scene with one of our new guys, Kenny, and his relationship is with Whitney Franzway from The Bachelor. But this scene is with Kenny and Kyle. They are meeting up for drinks. Now, they met through mutual friends about 10 years ago. So it's interesting. They've known each other for as long as we've known Kyle and as long as Kyle has known Amanda. Now, Kenny is someone who likes to work hard, play hard, so he's very much like Kyle, but he also calls Kyle a lush, which just shows how much of an alcoholic Kyle is. But Kyle talks about Loverboy and how he had to lay off 5 people just to keep the lights on. He talks about having to take the $500,000 loan and all of these things. So he's just really stressed about that as per usual. We get a little bit more about Kenny. He used to work on Wall Street and he actually left to start a venture capitaling investing. He invested in Loverboy. He grew up in the Midwest and he never thought that the black guy would work at the investment bank, but he's really proud of himself in terms of what he's been able to accomplish. Now, Kyle, on the other hand, he is on the brink of financial disaster. He says that he either needs a partner or someone to take over operations or else they will be out of business by the end of the year. Now, very interesting because literally by the beginning of this year, by the time that Kyle and Amanda had separated, Loverboy had started to do really well again because as soon as the West and Amanda thing came out, people started to really support. And Kyle has come out to say that like it really has saved Loverboy. So it's just wild to think that this cheating scandal, Scamanda, West TD, West Mandival situation really is the thing that saved a Loverboy. Nothing has ever been able to save Loverboy until this. So it's the butterfly effect of this all is just so fascinating to know like the trajectory of how all of these things happened. And if one thing hadn't led to another thing, then Loverboy may not still be here. You know, isn't that kind of wild? I do think that I want some Loverboy merch. I really want a shirt that says, or one of the sweaters that says summer should be fun. They've been sold out forever, but I really want to see if I can get myself one. Now, Whitney, she is also a Midwest girl. She is very much a lover girl. She wants to be a wife and a mom, and she is actually moving across the country for Kenny. I'm very curious how they met, though. I'm not sure where she was living initially. I know she's from Minnesota, but I don't know if she was living in LA when they say like moving across the country or how she met Kenny, how they got together. But it's sort of interesting how this group is sort of intertwined because we've got this girl from The Bachelor and then we've got Kenny who's been friends with Kyle and Amanda or Kyle and Amanda and Lindsay, I guess, for a really long time. So she said that she wouldn't be doing it if she didn't think that Kenny was her person. But Kenny explains to Kyle that his biggest fear is worrying that he's going to hurt her in some kind of way. He's worried that the spark might go away, and it's hard for him to know if someone is the one. So he's trying to figure that out. I mean, you know, we'll find out later a little bit more about their relationship. But yeah, they haven't been together for like a crazy long time. But I feel like when you've been together with someone for like a year, which they have, you kind of should know by now if that person is meant to be with you or not, right? You kind of can't keep going on for years and years and years and sort of waste somebody's time when they kind of know that they're meant to be with you. That's why she decided to move. So then we see this scene of Amanda and Kyle just leaving therapy, and their therapist made another very insightful commentary in that she thinks that they are moving backwards. Now, they apparently got in a fight about another DJ gig that Kyle had that ended at 2 a.m., but he came home at 4. So again, it's just the same problems over and over again. Amanda expresses that like Kyle was super negative in therapy and she's just looking to move forward, but he just keeps talking about the past, which is interesting because that's something that she normally does. Again, very curious what the therapist is thinking in these moments and what kind of advice that she's giving them. Because if she's talking about them moving backwards, hating each other, like I wonder if she should really just be preparing them for the inevitable separation as opposed to trying to help them rectify something that is just so far beyond rectification at this point or being rectified at this point. So then we get this scene of everybody out at a bar, and Lindsay asks Kenny about his relationship with Whitney. Lindsay is doing her job, right? She's getting involved in other people's relationships. She's doing Lindsay. And so he explains that like their first date was like a year ago, so they've been together like a year, but right after their first date he was kind of being a playboy for a bit, but then he clarifies that at the time his mom was dying and maybe he wasn't the best version of himself. Now some of the other people are like, okay, so being a slut is like a stage of grief, right? So I love that people brought that up because that is kind of like a funny thing to sort of try to justify like why you were being a playboy. It's like, oh well, my mom was dying. Okay, well, you know, if Whitney is such an amazing person, maybe just be a little loyal. But anyways, Lindsay can't believe that Whitney has moved across the country before getting a ring. And Kenny says, I'm getting I hate men vibes. Dude, she doesn't hate men, first of all. Like Lindsay dates all the time, okay? She's not a man hater. But second of all, why? I mean, it's a very valid thing to say, right? I mean, it's a really big deal to move across the country for someone, and it's completely reasonable to want like a big commitment. Not that Whitney is the one expressing that, Lindsay is the one expressing that, but Lindsay's just saying that it's something that she's surprised by. She's surprised that when Whitney would make the decision to move across country without having like a more substantial, something from Kenny, like a ring, right? That's all she's sort of saying. I don't think there's any like man hating involved. Now, Whitney does look a little bit offended, but she's sort of like such a meek, quiet person that I can't really expect her to stand up to Lindsay. And I feel like that's something that we're going to see kind of play out throughout the rest of the season. Now, Kyle ends up showing up alone because Amanda's too overwhelmed to fake it with the group. And we have Lindsay and Kyle talking, and Lindsay says that, therapy can be triggering because you're unpacking years worth of things that have never been addressed. And it's so true. I can't even imagine trying to go to therapy with someone that I have so many issues with and then trying to go home with that person afterwards and act like everything is normal, especially when so many of their issues happened so many years ago, like with the cheating, right? This is something that Amanda's never been able to get over. That's very obvious. So if that's something that they keep addressing in therapy, I can't imagine just being able to go back to normal after. And I can imagine how it does sort of make things worse. Now, Danielle shows up and Lindsay doesn't feel ready to talk to her. Lindsay pulls out a notes app for the producers to explain in detail why she feels that Danielle has betrayed her over the years. So it starts with season 4, where a week after Lindsay and Carl broke up, Danielle gave Carl a hand job in the back of an Uber. Now, I do remember it being an over the pants hand job, right? What do they call that? OTP, over the pants HJ, OTPHJ, right? Yeah. So, okay. And also, Lindsay and Carl weren't like together at that point in time. Anyways, it was weird. Okay, fair enough. But this was a long time ago. But it still seems like Lindsay is harboring a lot of resentment, and she's found a lot of things to go back and be upset about. Then obviously she's still upset about the engagement in season 7, where Danielle made it about her. Now she's also upset about the confessionals in season 9 that Danielle did, where she was talking about Lindsay single momming it up, and she feels like Danielle has just basically been shitting on her for years. Now, when it comes to the confessionals, I can't disagree. I feel like Danielle is, kind of being down on her, but am I wrong to say that I always feel like Danielle had Lindsay's best interest at heart? She really, really loved Lindsay with her whole entire soul, but I feel like she's just really bad at expressing herself, and she has maybe like social interaction issues, I guess, in a way. And I feel like maybe the way that she tries to express being a good friend doesn't always come out the way that it should. Then we get this other girls get together with Amanda, and Yvonne talks about how she wants a kid with her husband, Nick, but he isn't ready. She said when they first got married, they hit a few bumps in the road. So she thought that they were going to start trying to have a family as soon as they got married, but it felt like he kept trying to push off the conversation. So to try to get back at him, I guess, to show that like he doesn't really pay a lot of attention to her, one day she decided to go to San Diego and not tell him. Now she was gone for a few days and he did not notice. And nobody's making this like a big deal in the episode, but this is a big ass deal. How did he not notice? It's not like they have a million kids and a million things going on. Even still, how do you not notice that the only person that you live with isn't there? This reminded me of an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians back when Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce Jenner, and he tried to prove to Chris that she doesn't really notice that he's gone or that he's part of the family. So he went to live at the Malibu house for like a few days, and she literally didn't notice that he wasn't there. She thought that he was in the garage the whole time. It's like, don't you guys sleep in the same bed? And even if they didn't sleep in the same bed, you think that Nick and Yvonne did. So how did he not notice for several nights that his wife wasn't there? Like, this relationship is super interesting to me. Like, I thought they were a super stable relationship based on nothing, just based on what I've seen online and stuff. But like, What? How do you not notice that your wife is gone for several days? Like, absolutely wild. So they decide to talk about Danielle and how she's moving in with this guy and wanting to have kids with someone who is still fully married. Now, we're going to need to get more information about this, right? Like, what do we mean by fully married? Is he separated from this woman? It's implied that he is, but everyone on the show seems to be making it a big deal. So I don't know if he actually does still currently have a relationship with his baby mama. Now, this being said, we know that they are currently pregnant, so congratulations to Danielle. And when I did mention this on our Monday episode, but yeah, we just don't have all the real details here. I don't know if they're legally separated. There are allegations that there was some sort of crossover when he was still fully with his wife. So I guess we'll find out. And then our final scene is Kyle and Amanda going for drinks for their 4-year anniversary. And Amanda tells Kyle that she does not feel like they're moving forward in therapy, and it's hard to go back home and act like things are normal after therapy. Yeah, like I said, you're just going through all of these, like you're pulling at these threads, you're bringing up really difficult things, and then you have to go home and act like it's normal, and that's just so difficult. And then she tells him at their anniversary dinner that she is going to move out. She said that she's going to do this for like a month. It doesn't mean it's the end of their relationship. She truly believes that this is to help them, and she wants to date each other again and spend time together again and get excited about seeing each other, going to each other's apartments and stuff. And she said that she isn't doing this to run away. She is doing this to try to help it work out. I mean, I guess I appreciate that from her, but I am just curious as to why she is still trying to make these strides. I guess you're trying to do every absolute last thing, which I can understand, right? But at this point in time, their anniversary is what, end of September, I think September 21st. There's no way at this point in time. That means that West has already gone on a date with Mia because he went on a date with her in September. And we know from when she did Watch What Happens Live, she said that Amanda told her at BravoCon that she actually pre-gamed with West before the date. So she was at least creating like an emotional bond with West in those months. And it's just really hard to believe that like she was fully invested in trying to work on her relationship with Kyle when it's so clear that an emotional relationship was starting to develop between her and Wes, at the very least. By that point in time, I feel like she must have been like really at least falling for him, not maybe in love, but really infatuated with him. So I can't truly believe that her mind was in a place and open enough to be open to trying to fix her relationship in any way. I really just don't. I appreciate her wanting to try to take that last step of the separation to try to do one final thing, but I don't truly believe it was to try to save it because I just can't truly imagine that she wanted to save something when her heart was already somewhere else. Okay, then we had Watch What Happens Live with Kyle and Lindsay, and here are basically the highlights. So Kyle says that he has plans to talk to West tomorrow, meaning today, Wednesday, right? He said that basically he sent a voice note to West. He didn't want to go into the whole thing because it was basically rambling, but he said that, he's never going to take somebody's job away from them and he won't like not film with him. But he did say that he has plans to talk to West tomorrow, i.e. today. So curious to see what'll happen there. Wish we had Andy and a camera for that. Kyle does not think West and Amanda's relationship will last. With regards to the rumor that West will be introducing Amanda to his parents soon, apparently everyone has met West's parents. That's what Lindsay said. So it's really not that big a deal. Um, Kyle says that when it comes to how he feels about Amanda and the fact that he took pictures with her and stuff, he's like, listen, I still care for her, but I'm not excusing her behavior. He said that in terms of people asking questions about whether she did this because she was jealous of Sierra, Lindsay believes it was more likely an insecurity within herself rather than jealousy of Sierra. And that's something that I mentioned earlier, right? Is the reason that she got together with West because she truly believed that she couldn't do any better than just a baby Kyle, or because she truly has feelings for him, right? That's the question. Lindsay apparently talked to Amanda last week. Kyle didn't think it was true, the whole rumor when he was on Watch What Happens Live several months back. He said that for him to come on Watch What Happens Live, for West to come on Watch What Happens Live and have that Wolf of Wall Street moment and lie just felt very performative. Lindsay said that you can't have a show with her as a mom without showing her as a mom, So it ended up working out with the baby daddy to be able to show her on screen, which I'm so glad about. Kyle says he does not regret becoming a DJ, but he does regret not investing in Soft Bar. I'm like, oh, good. I feel like that makes a big deal, or big difference, at least to Kyle or to Carl. I feel like that will make a big difference. He said he doesn't regret talking about his and Amanda's intimacy. And I am curious if we are going to get more information on that at the reunion, if the 7-year itch truly was 7 years. He said that he went on Prozac for a couple of months, and I wonder when this was, probably at the time that they decided to separate. He said that he told Wes in a voice note that he won't not film with him. Lindsay says that she is celibate, or she is not celibate anymore. So basically, she's hooked up with someone, so that's great. Kyle says with regards to dating, he's having fun. And when Andy asked him about Megan King Edmonds, he was like, well, didn't you see her recently at the DMV? And he's like, yeah, but I didn't make out with her. And Kyle's like, yeah, touche. Apparently, Amanda's dad DM'd him, not texted, but DM'd him, and he still has a good relationship with Amanda's parents. And in terms of Kyle's parents, they have asked sort of what is in the water down there, what is going on. On the Watch What Happens Live after show, Lindsay said that she doesn't think that there was a physical affair between Wes and Amanda, but there definitely was a developing emotional connection, which I totally agree with. And Kyle still thinks that West was moving intentionally towards Amanda throughout the entire season, and I completely concur. Even if Amanda was not developing an emotional connection, which I truly believe she was, West was. West was truly trying to create something there with her. All the kissing and the whispering and the hugging and stuff, it's just so intimate. It's just way more. And if you watch that scene of Sierra and Wes kissing, the way he's kissing her is not the way that he kisses Amanda at all. The way that he kisses Amanda is passionate. He always has his hands in her hair, his hands wrapped around her body, whispering in her ear. But with Sierra, his hand was not even touching her. It was just sort of like dangling all dilly-dally by itself. And it just felt a lot less intimate than the way that he kisses Amanda. He kisses Amanda with passion and with love, and he kisses Sierra with like lust, I guess. I don't know. All right, you guys, that is the end of the episode. I feel like that we covered everything from Summer House, In the City, Watch What Happens Live. I cannot wait till next week when we have the reunion, part 1. I will be having Ryan Bailey joining me for that. We'll be covering reunion part 1 and In the City episode 2. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Bravo Investigator. You can watch this episode on YouTube, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel so that I can monetize. Join the Facebook page. And guys, don't forget, I started a whole new podcast called All You Need Is You, which is basically a guide to living your best solo life. So if you want to check out that podcast, you can just go to your Apple or Spotify apps and type in All You Need Is You. I've also linked it in the show notes. So go over there, go to the show, subscribe, follow the show, download. And I hope you enjoy that show. I love you, BBs. I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Bravo Investigator. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and join the Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review.